Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. We are back, and I'm so glad to be talking with my guest today. But before we get to that, my name is Kevin L. Powers. I'm the host of the show, and I'm also the festival director, program director for Something Wicked Entertainment Events. And this is our podcast in which we delve deep into individual films in the horror genre or films that are kind of adjacent to horror. So we like to delve deep into the subgenres of horror as well. Part of that plays into what we are actually discussing today, which is why I mentioned that. But if you've been with the show for our last 2 years, you will realize that what we like to do is we like to delve deep into films that you may or may not have ever heard or seen, and to reevaluate films that everyone has most definitely have seen. The film we are discussing today is one that we don't think so many people have seen it, but we're going to discuss it anyways, and that is the found footage in anthology format film Zombie Diaries from 2006. Now, the thing about this film is that it is a film of which it kind of borrows from two different genres. And to talk about those two different genres with me, I have my esteemed guest, Mr. Jim Adams, to return. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, yes, you've got the Mr. Found Footage man himself and master of anthology. Yes, so I mean, I'm hitting both of my wheelhouses on this one.
Yeah, so everyone listening, Jim and I both love found footage films. Yeah, I know you're probably thinking, why?
Yeah, that just brought down my credibility.
He just brought down both of our credibilities. So we both love these films. So delving into Zombie Diaries, which also takes into consideration more of an anthology film, and which is how we're going to discuss it today. It kind of melds these two subgenres into one, and we'll kind of see how well it does that exactly. So, as we were kind of talking and discussing right before the show, you were telling me a little bit about how you came about this film and what your kind of initial reactions were.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A lot of people know I work a third shift job in addition to doing podcasting and that sort of thing. I had never heard of this film until you told me about it. And, we'd gotten together to do a bunch of found footage films. So I was sort of intrigued with it. I watched it one Sunday after I had gotten off working all night Saturday, and fell asleep through half of it. So I had to go back and watch it a second time so I could actually talk about it legitimately. It is a much better film if you see the whole thing. Now I can see why I thought at first it was sort of disjointed. Like we've said with other found footage films, if it's done really well, they can be an awful lot of fun. I will give these guys some strokes in the fact that they did do this one pretty well, as far as, they didn't make a lot of the mistakes that a lot of found footage people make. But there are still some elements of this movie that I had some problems with. And I think it had to do with some of the stuff when I researched it. A lot of this film is ad-libbed, and it shows. And that sort of hit it hard a little bit in some of the scenes where it was clearly the director just said, just do the scene however you want to do it. And you can feel that. You can feel some awkwardness, and and unfortunately, to make a really good found footage film, you really do need to script it out pretty well so that you can make it sound natural.
I will agree.
That's sort of the catch-22 of making a found footage film, I think.
People want to go for, filmmakers want to go for that spontaneity, but the only way to do that accurately is to kind of have the actors be very natural. And you can't just go out and just shoot it. They have to get to know each other, be natural as their character, and kind of improv / rehearse long before you actually put the camera in their hands to film it. I do agree with you there that some of the dialogue in this film is a little bit stinted. In fact, before we decided to do the podcast, and I had to rewatch the film because I originally saw it in 2006.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't have told you a single thing about this movie if I had not rewatched it. This movie, literally in 2006, when there were so many found footage movies being released all the time, it was one of those things. It was one of those films. Is zombie film, found footage. I'm there. I'll watch it. Watched it, completely forgot about it
Yeah.
until we decided to do it for the show. Rewatched it, and I actually think it's a better film than it led to believe, mostly because of the way that the formatting is.
Yeah.
I think if they had played it straight, I think it would not have been as interesting, because it's interesting that they have these multiple different stories going on and that they all link up. Eventually link up, sort of like what happened in the film Trick or Treat.
Yes. Yeah. No. And I like that. I like the approach. That was one of the real positives. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that if it had not done that, it would not be nearly as effective as a film, because the by doing it like that, it allows the audience to still be surprised by some of the stuff that comes up later.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. The weak link is the characters, and we might as well just start delving into the actual film, because I know a lot of people out there probably have never even heard of this film, much less
probably not.
This
yeah,
film.
We'll spoil it all for you folks. So if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. So this will not be a spoiler-free conversation. We don't really deal with spoiler-free conversations. We kind of like spoil it, or we can't talk about it. So if you're listening and you really, really don't want to spoilers, don't listen to it right now. Watch the movie and then come back.
That's right.
The beginning of the film is a really effective beginning, because what you see is a bunch of soldiers coming in, and you don't know exactly what operation they are part of right now, but you are seeing that they are coming into the frame with guns and kind of doing the raid on a particular location. You also have some scientists who show up who are in full CDC gear. CDC, yeah.
That's right.
Gear, who are examining a body, and then it's when you jump to the very first segment, and you realize that it is a outbreak that's just happening. So the very first segment that we're going to talk about
I almost thought it was Chernobyl Diaries. No, I'm just kidding.
Which we've also discussed. But the first segment is actually called Diary 1, The Outbreak. And this is literally at the cusp of the outbreak. These newspaper reporters, or I guess videographers, and
I think these might have been TV. I'm not sure if they were newspaper or TV, but I believe they were TV, because they had another gal that they were taking on their journey with them to appear before the camera or whatever to ask questions.
So these four people are essentially you're hearing that there is an outbreak that hasn't happened yet in London, but other parts of the world, specifically Africa and other parts, it hasn't reached London yet. But it's not long before you realize that it is getting there at London, because these four individuals, who are Leanne, Andy, Vanessa, and Matt, who is the cameraman. So that's very important, because Matt's the cameraman in this first segment.
Yes.
They are filming this, and the first person they do is they interview a Miss Buckley. And Miss Buckley is someone who works in, I think a school. I think it is. And
it was a school.
And the government is telling her one thing, but not telling her everything in regards to the actual outbreak. So there's a whole mistrust to the government, which prevails this entire film. There's always, in this film, the government is not your friend. The government.
And it was interesting, because they showed several interviews where it was sort of like 50-50, where some didn't, some just were very apathetic and just said, the government will take care of it. We'll be fine, and all that. And I was really intrigued with that. I think it's one of the stronger aspects of the movie.
Yeah, I think that the beginning starts off really well when it's these TV, they're four TV reporters. So let's just call them four TV reporters.
Yes.
Who are trying to get the story, and they get information that someone in this far off town has information in regards to this disease, this virus and stuff.
Right.
These four end up venturing off to this far off town that they have to drive to. And when they get there, their town's completely deserted. Like
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
they can't find no one. It is
No one. Yeah.
they look around and eventually their car stalls and they can't get out of town because their car stalls. They also
It breaks down on them. Oh my goodness.
yeah, it breaks down on them, and then they call back to headquarters. And headquarters tells them that they not to return back to London because the outbreak has spread, and there's all kinds of chaos is happening in London.
And this is like in a matter of just a couple of hours.
Yeah, this is a matter.
Because I think it took them like about 3 or 4 hours to get, because the traffic was so bad. People were sort of panicking and leaving
already.
London.
Yeah, people were already panicking.
But still, the fact that from the time we see, I guess it was not Matt, but the producer there, I can't think of his name, talking with his boss and just saying, "Well, just keep me up to date on what's going on." And everybody was just sort of like, "Well, we think maybe it's not going to be too bad or whatever." To about 3 hours later, where now London is like mass chaos.
Yep, it happens.
Wow,
really fast.
That's pretty impressive.
And they don't know how it spread, and that's the other thing about
nothing. They know nothing about it.
They don't know how it spread. So unlike other like zombie films, you get the sense that it's you get a bite, you become a zombie, blah blah blah. In this film, there is a sense that they don't know how it spread. It truly is like a pandemic, which is actually before the real pandemic that actually happened.
And isn't it? I was thinking about this came out in 2006. Now, this predates The Walking Dead. Although you will see a lot of things in this movie that The Walking Dead had. So I don't know if Kirkland was maybe had seen this movie in 2006 and it influenced him a little bit when he did his graphic novel or not. But I mean, there was a lot of similarities there. But what really tagged me when I watched this one was how accurate it was to what we experienced in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah.
And I could think if I'd seen this in 2006, like you did, I'd probably say, yeah, that makes for great theater, but it had never really happened like that. And then we go through it, a worldwide pandemic a few years later. And these guys really hit it on the head. They knew what they were, they really, really sort of called it on the shots. Because people go, there's the government's saying it's more like a flu and it's not going to be that bad. It was like almost the same thing we were hearing in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, we thought, we'll start off in China and it's not going to make it over to us. And
then all of a sudden, boom, thousands of people dying,
Yep. No, when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, shit.
I mean, they called it right to the numbers. I mean, it was unreal.
Well, like I said, I had seen this in 2006, but it didn't leave an impression on me. Unfortunately, because there was too many, the market was too much filled with found footage movies.
Oh, there was a found footage film coming out every week back then.
Yeah. So, unfortunately for them, they get into this house. Our 4 TV reporters get into a house, and that's where they encounter their first zombies. Now, it's funny because during the daylight hours, there's no zombies. Everyone's gone. They can't. There's no one. But the moment night approaches is when they come out. They find the first ones inside the house. They see their first body. They run out the house, and then they encounter a ton of them.
Now, I love the way they shot that. Him discovering the bodies in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because they take you on. They really build it up well. It's a 2-story house. They got to go up the stairs. He's at this door. He really doesn't want to open the door, but as he opens it up, you hear something. And I kept thinking, what are they doing? Are they putting music to this or something? And it's flies. It's like a horde of flies over these bodies. And as he opens the door, it gets louder and he looks in and you don't see it initially, but then my mind starts going, oh my God, there's got to be corpses or something dead in there. And then boom, then they show that was a great way.
Well, yeah, because the very first
build that up.
The very first body you see is just really the face and eyes and stuff.
That's it.
Yeah, and then the camera pans down, and you realize half of this body's been eaten up.
Absolutely, and they do this later on in the movie, where a swarm of flies is sort of your key that there's a body coming up or whatever. I mean, I did it a couple more times. In that, I was really intrigued with that decision. I was like.
I agree.
Nice touch.
And then, of course, once they flee that house after the first body, because these are normal newspaper reporters, they have no weapons on.
Oh, they freak out.
They freak out is because it's the first zombie, they first body and zombie that they encounter, and they
Right.
freak out and they get out of the house as soon as possible. But then they encounter a town now filled with zombies.
Oh, they come out
So
of nowhere. Yeah.
they come out of nowhere. They come out of the woodwork at night, so they're nocturnal, not all day. But then they flee into the woods, and the first segment, kind of ends with them making a fire in the
Right.
wood,
Right. Right.
and they thinking that they're safe. We'll talk
Oh
about
yeah, I love that.
later because they think they're safe.
These people were so stupid.
At the very beginning of the pandemic, because they don't know how to react. They have no weapons.
No, that's right. They just
nothing like that.
Yeah, they just totally freaked out.
And so then that segment ends, and you kind of think that they're not going to show up again because this next diary, Diary 2,
Right.
called The Scavengers, is 1 month later.
Yes.
This is the pandemic is already happening. Zombies
now it's there. It's all over Great Britain and the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the people who are involved in the Scavengers segment, which are Elizabeth, John, and Greg, and John is
right.
With the camera this time. I'm making notes of this because different people have the camera.
Yeah, I think it was a family. Wasn't it like a husband, wife, and a kid? I'm not.
No, Scavengers was just the cameraman, Elizabeth, and Greg, and I think you kind of.
That's right. That's right. Okay, yeah, I confused some of this a little bit.
No, it's easy to do because there's so many characters in this film.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, you got to.
That's the one thing that as you're watching this, and I guarantee you that's one of the things that was the main things that drew me away from it the very first time I saw it. Is like there's so many characters, and because the dialogue, like we were discussing earlier, the dialogue is very non-specific. A lot of characters are just caricatures, like they don't have any individuality.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like a bunch of people.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
So these three are scavengers. They're looking for food. They've been forced out of wherever they were before because they don't really mention where they were before they started scavenging. But they know that they won't survive long if they don't.
Oh, that's right. Now I'm getting the picture again. Yeah. Okay. The family comes next. Yeah.
And so they come across. They try to get supplies, and they come across a store where they get some supplies.
Right.
But then the store is filled with zombies as well.
Well, it's funny. It's another one of those things like we had in the last one where there's nobody around. The town looks totally deserted. The minute they get in the store and start loading up, they look out the window and boom, all these come out of nowhere. They just show up.
And these people only have one rifle. And
that's it.
A limited amount of ammo. Now, this is the dumb thing I did find about the film is that characters like this one, they're in this segment, they're shooting zombies that are far away from them instead of running. And if you have a limited amount of ammo, that's the one
that's right.
you want to be doing. And I can't believe that after a month of being out there, that they haven't decided to pick up any other weapons.
And there's one other goof that they made in this, where the guy does run out of rifle ammo, and he kills the zombie with the butt of the gun.
Yes.
Okay. What are you gonna do with the blood that's all over the gun now? Not thinking this one through, buddy.
No, not thinking this one through. But
they didn't really address it in the movie, and I thought, because I caught it right off the bat. I said, man, you gotta have to throw that gun away, and your clothes are probably covered in blood, and but they just didn't even address that.
No, well, with this segment, they don't seem to be unlike the future segment. These characters don't seem to be concerned with like blood and all that type of stuff being an infection.
No, not at all. Yeah, they're not concerned with catching the virus, but
they're not concerned about that at all. They're more or less concerned in it, like they're scavengers. They are literally scavenging for food.
Yeah, they've run out of food. We find out in the beginning they're almost out of food, and they got to get something somewhere.
Yeah, so they're trying to find anything, but they're also looking for parts for a radio.
That's right. Yeah, the radio thing. Right.
Which I realized, when I rewatched the movie, plays a bigger part in the rest of the film. Is that I guess radios after all this happens, are like ham radios are the only way that people can communicate.
Yeah. There's no communication at all.
So that plays a huge part in the
big
the
time.
whole film because these scavengers eventually come across a voice over the airwaves when they get their radio fixed.
Right, yeah.
But that's kind of what happens. They kind of escape from the whole grocery store with whatever grocery they picked up because we actually don't see it. We actually see one of them pick up a bottle of vodka, but that's about it.
Yeah, we don't know any of the details. Yeah,
we don't get the details of this one, and that's all that you get from this because these characters, obviously, when you watch this one, you don't feel like you gotten to know the characters all that much, and you are hoping that they come back again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the feeling that you get with this one.
Right.
And then it skips to Diary 3, The Survivors.
The Survivors, yeah. This is the one this is the family one, yeah.
This was a weird one because you can't tell who's family, who's not, who's a couple, who's not.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. It's more than one family. You don't realize there's just people that have all gathered together.
If people have gathered together and a family is actually killed, the mother and daughter are actually killed at one point in this.
That's true. Yeah.
But this one depicts people who have, and this, I've never seen this in another zombie movie, I don't think. But these groups of survivors are more or less protecting a lake, of which is their complete means of water supply.
Yeah, their water supply. Yeah, absolutely.
So they are killing zombies on a daily basis to keep them away from the water because they believe that they don't know how the infection spreads. It can spread from air, blood.
Exactly.
No. And so they are very cautious.
It could totally infect the lake and then they'd be out of water.
Yeah. They'd be out of water. So every day they go out killing zombies and burning the bodies. And then every night they're out there killing more zombies, so that they are protecting the lake. And I found that a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
For these characters, and the problem with this one is there are so many characters. This one has way more characters than some.
Yeah, there's like 10 of them. I mean, I lost count.
There's some of the main ones are Mackenzie, Jeff, Sue. James is the one with the camera in this one.
Right.
And of course, our Amin shows up later, who is another character.
Right.
And then eventually Elizabeth, John, and Greg for the previous one show up. This is where the stories start to meld together. But
right.
We get a sense of all these different characters, and this one does. Some of the characters have different personalities. You don't get a sense that James, who's on the camera, actually helps a whole lot with killing. And you don't have a sense of why he has the camera except at night.
They don't really explain that at all. Well, at night, the night vision.
At night he has the light on.
And the light, right, exactly.
So I get that one, but during the day,
it doesn't make. I don't know why he's shooting.
Yeah, you don't know why exactly he's shooting. He's just shooting. It's not
just make a journal of us being killed or whatever.
Yeah, well, the same thing could go for the second story too. Why?
Same one, yeah.
The first story is the only one that logically has
right, because they are a film crew.
Yeah, they're a film crew, so it's logically that they'd have a camera. And I just don't get the sense of why they got the camera in the second and third story.
No, it's not really explained at all.
No. But we roll with it.
At some point, someone says, "Well, this could make a great found footage film, so let's roll with this."
But Amin is someone who comes driving up in another vehicle, and he's been out in the world scavenging for something. I don't know if they actually mention what he was scavenging for. But
no, they don't. They really don't.
Okay.
I mean, just figure it's probably food or ammo or whatever. You would.
Yeah, and he's in a relationship with one of the other girls, which I couldn't remember which is which, because unfortunately for us as the viewers, a lot of these characters are, they're not really individoesed.
They're not. No, they're not. It's very easy to confuse them.
It's very confusing. And this one gets more confusing because there's so many characters, which don't really do much other than, what's his name? Coke, who is the guy who just does his own thing, and that plays into his character later on in the story. Yes. And the other main guy, who is Jeff. Jeff seems to be kind of their leader, so to speak, of the men. He kind of takes charge of a lot. And he's in a lot of scenes.
Oh yeah.
But then once Amin arrives, it kind of cuts back to Elizabeth, John, and Greg, who are trying to follow the radio signal. Now we
Yeah.
realize that the survivors group have a radio system working, and that they're the ones that Elizabeth, John, and Greg have been in contact with.
Well,
So
that's what I assume too. Yeah, I
they're
figured it had to
trying.
be.
Yeah, we don't know what the conversation is because it's all
Right.
garbled,
Right.
but we get a sense that that's where Elizabeth, John, and Greg are heading, is towards their signal. But unfortunately for them, while I think it's I'm trying to remember, was it John? While Greg is on the radio, he is attacked by a zombie. You
Yes.
think that
Yeah.
John or Elizabeth will be watching, but they're not watching, and Greg gets attacked.
He gets it.
And then, of course, Elizabeth gets attacked. Now,
yes.
Elizabeth dies, so it then leaves a wounded Greg and John wandering through the woods.
This is awful, man. Yeah, I mean, it's like and zombies everywhere.
Zombies everywhere. All of a sudden, they're everywhere. They're everywhere, and of course, Greg eventually succumbs to his bite, his zombie bite.
Well, that's a pretty poignant scene because his buddy has to put a bullet in his head to keep him from reanimating, which again is something we see in The Walking Dead a few years later. And some of these other zombie movies that once they reanimate, you got to take them out.
Yeah.
Then if you do it too soon, then, if you shoot them too soon, they die and they reanimate. So you've got to shoot them after they're reanimated in order for it to be effective.
Yep.
And these is like the first movie I can think of that really addressed, maybe with the exception of Night of the Living Dead, because they it all sort of comes from that, if you go all the way back to 1968.
Yeah, I think the only other show that kind of actively always kills, they actually kill their friends when they succumb, is Z Nation. Z Nation did that a lot.
Yeah, Z Nation, use that.
Yeah, they gave a word for it. It was like relief. I forgot what it was. They had a saying every time they killed someone. Like, I actually loved Z Nation.
That was a great show.
Yeah, it was a fun show. I loved it. I always found that a much more entertaining show than Walking Dead. Because
I know it's sort of blasphemous here in the Atlanta area, but I did too, actually. Yeah,
it was so much fun.
It was
so much fun to watch.
Maybe that's why I never got cast in The Walking Dead. That might have been
it. So once after Greg is dead, John's running through the woods with the camera. There's no reason why he still got this damn camera. But
I know. Yeah, it's like, drop the damn camera.
He's running through the woods, I think at night, and he gets bit by a zombie at night. So you see half his hand is like bitten.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's so blurry because he's running with the camera.
Right. The camera's moving all over the place.
If you were ever bothered with shaky cam, this is definitely a movie with a lot of shaky cam.
Yeah, do not watch this movie. No.
And as dawn is breaking, he starts hearing gunshots in the distance, and he finally realizes he's found the people who are on the radio.
Yeah,
he thinks he's in cloud nine, about to be saved, found some more survivors. And unfortunately for him, running in the middle of the woods with all the other zombies, the survivors who can't tell that he's alive, for one, shoot him as though he is a zombie. That is a tragic motherfucking ending.
Oh, yeah.
It's great in terms of storytelling, but this guy who thinks that he's gone through hell and back again, thinks he's found the people that they've been looking for, which he has, but unfortunately he doesn't realize that they're out there shooting every person or body that shows up on that property.
Yep, and he just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time, and he gets shot.
And again, that's another. I think that's another homage to George Romero and Night of the Living Dead, because that's how that movie ends, where you've got, the character of Ben, who has survived all of this stuff in the household. And he peeks out the window because he hears some people coming up and they shoot him because they think he's a zombie.
Yep. And then, was it? Okay. And then after that, we go back to the survivors again.
Yes.
Now, at this point, they're not naming the different segments. This is part of the film where after we've
Yes.
been introduced to each of the segments, this groups of people, we're now watching as they are integrated into the story as a whole.
Right.
That still doesn't mean that it's not an anthology, because when it switches back to the characters from the beginning of the film,
no, actually, that's very much in line with some of the anthology shows that I love. Yeah.
But the next day after John's killed, we realize that Armin came back infected.
Yes.
And so that is a big thing, because we actually get to see what they do with one of their own when they're infected. They actually don't quarantine them necessarily, but they tie him up completely to the bed so he is completely immobile. Right. And his girlfriend or wife, because they never differentiate.
They never really say, but yeah, they're together. They're a couple.
Is lying in the bed next to him. Like, she knows that he is going to turn eventually, but she's still there with him. And obviously, once he's tied up and immobile, he can't do anything anyways. But at this point, you now realize that the idea of getting an infection is no longer like their number one thing. Like, they're not thinking about that now. Whereas in this segment, the survivors, they're making sure that they didn't get blood on their shoes, they didn't get blood on anything, because they don't know how it was passed.
Right. This group is heavy into the blood thing. Yeah.
But with Amin, because he's one of their own, they kind of are not nearly as cautious as you would think.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, James and Jeff go out to an area where they keep thinking more zombies are coming in when they shouldn't. Now, this takes the movie into a completely different area.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
I actually like this part because
this went in such a weird direction. It was like, whoa, they got my attention again. It was like, okay, this is not your traditional zombie movie. This really went into an unusual direction.
Well, because the big question overlaying this entire segment is the fact that these zombies keep showing up and they don't know why. Come to find out that the area where all the zombies are coming from were supposed to be the area that Coke is supposed to be guarding and watching. But they come across a barn, which is how the zombies are into, and they find in the barn a body. A person who has been tied up and obviously sexually molested and abducted and all this type of stuff. This throws Jeff and James into a complete, like, what the fuck is going on? This was Coke's area. What the hell has Coke been doing out here in the middle of nowhere? And so Jeff, who's supposed to be the leader type character here, says he'll handle it. He'll talk to Coke.
Yeah. He'll take care of it his own way,
Yeah, he'll take care of it his own way, but he never really does.
No, I think he's afraid to confront him.
I think he's afraid to confront him as well, because what ends up happening is that by the end of the next night, James wakes up in the middle of the night, and it's chaos. Zombies are everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, God.
He watches Coke kill Jeff, among other characters. Now, the implication is that when Coke goes back to his tied up woman, that he realizes that people have been here and that he just needs to dispatch everyone who may be a witness.
Yes, that's right.
Then the film goes into a different territory because they actually have a villain in the movie.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. And again, I wasn't sure about this because it happened so quickly, but the woman tied up in the barn looked a lot like one of the producers from the first segment.
That is correct.
The blonde woman, and was that her?
Yes,
because that's what the two times I've seen this movie, I said, I think that's her. I think this is where they start merging the stories a little bit.
That's supposed to be, what's her name? Sue? Is it Sue?
I think it's Sue. Yeah. I lose all the names. Like you said, there's so many characters in this.
I think it's.
She was not the
Vanessa.
She was not the gal that appeared on camera with the camera crew, but she was the boss.
Yeah.
One of the producers behind the scenes with the guy with the beard that was also a producer.
Yeah, it should be Vanessa.
I think it is Vanessa. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sue is probably one of the girls in this segment, survivors, and I get those mixed up because
Yes,
there's
it's
so
very
many of
easy
them.
to mix them up because there's a couple that look just alike.
So
Okay, okay. I was just curious because that
yeah,
bugged me
I
both
had
times I watched. I think that's her, but I'm not sure. But it sure looked like her.
yeah, because during that whole segment at night, all hell breaks loose.
Yes.
Coke is just like it's systematically killing
Oh,
people,
he's on a rampage now.
and
Yeah.
James ends up watching him kill one of the ladies. And
Yes.
then, of course, Coke sees James has been filming him, and so Coke goes up to James and he shoots
Oh, that's a
James.
poignant scene. Yeah.
And James, the camera falls out of his hand, and
Right.
seeing the camera because the camera's still recording. And then, of course, James stumbles into the frame of the camera, and then you see all the other chaos erupt behind. Now, I think
Yes.
for like the one thing is that each one of these segments has a really hard ending because they're all dying.
Yes, that's right. It's like virtually nobody left by the time the movie ends.
Um, so that's how that Coke does all that stuff, and then it cuts
Yeah.
again to 1 month earlier. So we go back to the first story in those characters.
Right. Which sort of helped because it got a little confusing there because the first time I saw it, trying to realize that, okay, they are merging these different stories together a little bit. And this sort of helps understand how that came about.
Yeah, it understands how Vanessa is the one tied up in the barn.
Right.
Because we go back to 1 month earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and then we see Andy, Matt, Leanne, and Vanessa again, and they encounter Coke and Manny. So we
Yes.
already know what Coke is from the previous segment.
Right.
Manny just seems to be another character that we have not seen in anywhere else.
Yeah, no, yeah, he just was there. Yeah.
So at some point in that month between this segment and the beginning of the next Diary 2 entry, or in Diary 3 for that matter,
Yeah.
Manny disappears somewhere. We don't know.
Yes. Yeah, we don't know where. Yeah.
But they come out of the woodworks, and there are these two other survivors that just happen to be on the same path as our main characters, Andy, Matt, Leanne, and Vanessa.
Right.
They have a nice little sit down at the campfire.
But there's still something suspicious about it. I mean, and of course, the camera crew's not going to push them right because they've got guns and they don't. So they just sort of play along with it.
They kind of play along.
But these guys are acting weird.
They act weird. And of course, Coke and Manny leave halfway through the night.
Right.
They say their goodbyes. And then, of course, it's the next morning, and they can't find Leanne. Leanne is missing.
Leanne is gone.
That leaves them with, the characters Andy, Matt, and Vanessa. Matt having the camera, and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. They can't find Leanne, and then, fortunately for Matt comes across Coke and Manny, who have been torturing someone else. I think it's someone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know who this person is, but he's tied up the exact same way.
Yeah, and they're cutting his fingers off and all kinds of brutal stuff.
Torture them. They're awful, man. Stuff. Like these guys must have been serial killers / homicidal maniacs before the pandemic, and this just made.
That's the question. That is the question. Were they always like that, or did the fact that now the pandemic and there's no law and everything's wide open, the Wild West? Did they decide to just take advantage of the situation?
Well,
that's something you'll never get an answer to it. But it's like, who knows what they were like before it? They could have been decent guys that just got corrupted by the situation. That's the part I found really intriguing with those two guys.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Matt, who was just out looking for Leanne, he comes across them, and they end up shooting him. And they end up taking his camera and going after Andy and Vanessa. And then, of course, they captured Andy and Vanessa.
And they get them too, yeah.
They tie him to a tree. There's torturing them, and they eventually kill off Andy. But they keep
Oh, they save her. Yeah.
They save her. They're abusing her as she's on the tree, but they end up killing Andy. And then the next thing
Yes.
you know is we cut to the very, very, very beginning again with the soldiers.
Yeah, now the soldiers are coming into town. Yep.
They're coming in, and you now realize where they are going, and they are going to this barn. And what happens is they go into this barn, and there is a traumatized Vanessa who
very
is
much so,
tied up, abused, sexually molested for over a month.
Right.
And the film ends on her like distraught face.
She's the only survivor out of everyone we've seen in this movie.
Yeah,
with
the exception of soldiers. Know what happened to the other characters. You can assume that the soldiers at some point came through and killed Coke, but since we know Coke is
on that one, yeah. But I mean, it's just like everyone we've seen in this movie, other than the soldiers, are gone except for her. She's the only one that makes it through the whole thing.
Yeah. From my
not a good way to survive either.
No, good God, no. So this movie is a hard-hitting film with some very deep themes in it.
Absolutely.
And it's if it had a stronger script, it could have been a really great film. Because I really like the concept of it and how it was executed. But
yeah, no, the way they went into a different direction from what most zombie films go. I mean, I've never seen like a serial killer within a zombie movie, but that's basically what we have.
Yeah.
And that once it took that hard left, it was like, wow, this is different. And so it did sort of help overshadow some of the little bit of overacting and that happens with the improv situation. People tend to overact. That drives me a little crazy with that. You still have to script this stuff, but you can make it sound and look real, but it actually probably takes more preparation than a regular movie does.
Yeah. Well, I also
really bring that about.
Well, I think that's also a big problem of lower budget found footage movies also.
Yeah, I couldn't get any budget numbers on this. I have no idea how much this movie cost to make. But
I don't either, but it was part of one of those I think it was Dimension Extreme or...
Yeah, it was Dimension Project, yeah.
So I remember back then, the Weinsteins, I know I'm mentioning their names, would purchase a lot of films like this and then make a...
Yeah, because they're the ones that financed the second one, because they did make a sequel to this.
Yeah, and from my understanding, Coke is in that one too. The same actor plays...
Yeah, so apparently he doesn't get killed yet. But I haven't seen the second one, folks, so I can't tell you what happened.
I saw that one too when it came out. I can't tell you anything about the movie at all.
I was going to sit down before we got together today, and I said, no, I'm just going to concentrate on this one because I'd be afraid I'd get too confused with the two of them.
Yeah, and the thing is, we might do the second one later.
Yeah.
When we do more found footage films, me and you.
Hey, I'm your found footage man. Yeah, that's right.
But therein lies this film here. It's an oddity because it takes in this whole anthology film format and mixes up the timeline for greater effect. I believe that's what makes it a much better film, is mixing up the timeline. So
but I'm intrigued with this because this precedes. There was a real explosion of zombie films right after this. Beginning about midway through 2006, they started coming out, and it was like zombies everywhere. I mean, I was in a zombie film in this year that was shot locally here in Atlanta. I mean, it's still floating around somewhere. But and this is pre-Walking Dead, because Walking Dead went to like 2008, 2009. The TV show, the graphic novel, I think, came out not too long after this. And you've got Brian Keene's book, The Rising, which really set it all in motion. So I'm really impressed with this because it's like, people might watch this now and say, they just stole from them and them and them. It's like, no, they didn't, because it wasn't around. This was one of the first ones to come out. So, and that impressed me quite a bit when I watched this the first time. I didn't pay attention to the year, and I went back and specifically looked for it and went, wow. This one, yeah, preceded a lot of this stuff.
I think this movie was following on the bandwagon of found footage films. And
Oh, absolutely. Now that, yes,
yes, it
absolutely. They
was
were
not,
jumping on that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think it was
because I mean,
following
yeah,
zombies.
yeah, because I mean, you got Blair Witch came out in what, 99 or 2000, or I mean, it was like Blair Witch had come out about 5 or 6 years before this one. So.
Yeah, and this is when
And Paranormal
yeah,
Activity was starting to come out, and all of those.
and I think everyone was trying to make a found footage movie in just about every
Yeah,
genre, and between devil worshipping, hauntings, and apartment complexes.
right, exactly. Yeah, all kinds of subjects. Yeah,
I mean, I can't even tell you how many fucking ghost hunting found footage movies there are out there. I was like,
it's
Jesus.
true.
I mean, I've got, but to be honest with you, I think I've seen.
I'm trying to think, when did the first 28 Days Later come out? Because I mean, that one really
Oh, I
was a
don't, but
lot of
that's
fun.
but that's
No,
not
that
found
was
footage.
later. That was later. That was
Yeah, but that's not a found footage film, though.
no, it's not. But I'm just trying to think the way they did their
Infected,
zombies and infected, and
pandemic,
we had Outbreak and Quarantine and a couple of others like that. But it was
Outbreak was way ahead of all this stuff.
Outbreak. Yeah, preceded them all. Yeah, that one. I mean, that was like, yeah, that was way back there. But you didn't have your dead people just died. They didn't, walk around.
They didn't walk around. But quarantine or record, and everything.
Right. Yeah, Record was like a found footage film. Yeah.
I'd have to look at the dates when those are. We haven't discussed those for the show yet. So
They were all sort of in this area. I mean, they just really flooded, between like 2006 and maybe 2011 or so. They just really,
yeah, there's a
they
ton.
were everywhere. There were tons of them.
More in the vein of this one, which is a low budget movie.
Yeah, yeah.
There's tons of low budget or no budget. Because I have to say that there are some no budget.
Yeah, and they shot this on a DV camera. They didn't shoot it on HD. It was just a straight DV camera, like almost like a palm quarter type thing.
And it shows.
So yeah, if you're bothered by the shaky cam, I remember a lot of people when they saw Blair Witch said, "Oh, I hate the way the camera shakes," but that's style. I mean, that's as if you were walking around shooting with a little camcorder or whatever.
Yeah. It started off.
They actually did shoot this one, and that sort of followed 28. That's why I was thinking 28 Days Later came out around this time because they were the very first motion picture to shoot video, to shoot digital video on a DV player, or almost like the equivalent of an iPhone type.
Well, no, they shot on the iPhone. They weren't the first ones to do a digital thing, though.
But I mean, that was the first one I was aware of that had shot digitally like that. That's one reason I went to go see that movie, because I was so intrigued with the idea of someone shooting it all video.
Yeah, so by the time this one came out, 28 Days Later was out in 2002, and 28 Weeks Later.
Wow, okay, oh, that far. Okay, I didn't realize it was that far back. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was the idea of trying something new.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But, even 28 Days Later wasn't really the first one to shoot digitally like this. That would probably be something like Time Code. If you ever saw Time Code. Yep, Time Code.
Oh, I never did see that one. Yeah.
Time Code, they used 4 digital cameras to shoot simultaneously. And then when you're watching it, you see all 4 cameras at the exact same time.
Oh, okay. It's like a multimedia type presentation.
Yeah, but no one was doing that. And it was all one take.
Yeah.
So if they screwed up, they had to go back and reshoot the whole thing again with all 4
Right. Okay. Wow.
That one is a technical movie. The movie's okay in terms of story. It's more of watching the technical aspects of it.
Well, I'll check it out now that you've told me about it.
And they shot it that way because that was the only way to be able to shoot such long footage, a feature-length movie, without stopping.
Gotcha.
They don't stop. It's one take. 4 cameras.
Yeah.
One take.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
It is. It's really cool to watch, and they have multiple different versions of it on the Blu-ray / DVD, so you can watch one of the other versions that they did.
Right.
But
I'll have to check it out. I'll definitely, it's on my list.
But that being said, this film took some chances with the formatting, and that's one of the reasons why I think one of the better found footage movies out there.
No, I'll give them high marks for that.
Yeah.
They were. Out of because there's so many of them that we've seen that the majority of them are awful. They're just crap. But this is one of the better ones.
Yeah, and there's not that many zombie ones out there, to be honest with you.
No, I'm surprised.
I could think of this one and the sequel, and then of course Diary of the Dead by George Romero.
Diary of the Dead. Yep. Yep. Yep.
But there may be some other ones out there, some really, really, really low budget. Because unfortunately for the zombie genre, because anyone and everyone thinks they can make a zombie film, they've probably been made like 5 billion times. So
Yes.
if they're a
I was in one of those kind of films. Yeah.
and so many people because it was, but they didn't make it because it was a found footage film. They did it because it was a zombie film.
Because it was a zombie. Everybody had to do zombies there for a while.
Zombies are everywhere.
Yeah.
Walking Dead kind of solidified that for like the rest of like another.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Of zombie films, and everyone thinking they can make a zombie film as a low budget independent film. So
yes.
All right. So getting back to Zombie Diaries,
right?
We've now discussed a lot of the aspects of the actual film, so that people have a general idea of what this film is when they actually watch it. Do you think? And we've talked about this. One of the weakest points about the movie is the script itself.
Yeah, there's some portions there, and I think it probably was more noticeable when you had the segment that had a lot of people in it.
Yeah.
The survivors. I noticed it more there, but I tended to notice it a little bit in the first one with the film crew and stuff, but it was very, very prevalent in the one in the survivors one. It was awkward in some spots. It was just it just sort of made me wince a little bit.
And the fact that you don't actually see a lot of the survivors die on screen, you just know they are going to die. That like Armin, you see him tied up and then you don't see him again. You see, right. You don't ever see him again. The girl who was with him, you're not sure whatever happens to her because the person who James watches get killed by coke, I'm not even sure which one that is.
yeah. I'm not sure either. Yeah, you never really see his face.
Nah, and those are some of those are the problems with the film. I don't think that it will take away the film because you can't generally think that once coke starts killing people, all chaos reigns and no one is safe.
That just.
And the fact that you see, and this is the thing I do like, the fact that you see the cameramen all die in this film is actually one of the things I think is really cool.
That's very unusual.
Yeah, you see the cameraman for each segment, you see them die in the film.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
And it's one of those aspects that you really like. Oh, which reminds me that once Matt is killed from the first segment by Coke and Manny, they take up the camera to film.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they just sort of giggle around and say, "Oh, yeah, okay, now, lad, we're going to shoot some stuff." Boy.
Yeah. So the movie takes a different turn once that happens because now it's not the altruistic good people with the camera; it's the sadistic killers who are filming a snuff video.
Pretty much. Yep, that's it.
So I mean, that begs the difference. Is that what this movie eventually becomes? Is a snuff film of all these people who get killed because they kill everyone. They kill all the camera people.
Everybody,
instead of killing the people on screen, Coke and Manny kill the people who are behind the screen.
That's right.
Oh my God! So. In general, what else do you think about this film? Do you think it was successful? Do you think it was a successful found footage film? A successful
film? I think the fact that they were able to make a sequel, and that the Weinstein Company, bankrolled another film, suggests that they probably did pretty well.
Yeah, I
probably made some money. But I think just overall, comparing this to other found footage films that I've seen, this is one of the better ones. I put this up there with like Apollo 18, which I think is one of the better one of the better found footage films ever made.
Yeah.
In fact, it's still probably one of my favorites. And this one's sort of up there in the same quality level as that one was. So I got to give these guys Michael Bartlett and Kevin Gates some good strokes on that. That they did a good job with this.
I'm trying to think of what else did they do.
Not much of anything, really. This is the big thing that they've done. When I went back and looked at their resume, now interesting, if you go onto IMDb, the picture you find for Michael Bartlett and then the picture you find for Kevin Gates is the same picture. And I kept thinking, God, is it the same guy? But I don't think it is. I just think they did that as a gag.
Oh, geez.
But because they have separate resumes, but they produced a couple of films, but mainly as directors and as writers. This is pretty much the Zombie Diary films, the two Zombie Diary films. It's pretty much what they've done. I mean, that's the big part of their career.
Which is actually quite funny because IMDb says that they're working on another sequel to Zombie Diaries called Origins.
Yeah.
Quite funny.
I don't think that ever came through. You know, it might be the second one didn't do that well or whatever, but that was so long ago now that I got a feeling that one probably, the majority of projects never get made. And you and I know that as well as anybody, that it's
oh yeah.
So it's so hit and miss.
Yeah, and the thing is, I kind of see the success of this the same way I saw the success for The Gallows from Blumhouse.
Yeah, that's
The
a
Gallows
good analogy.
Acquisition that they purchased for almost nothing.
Yeah,
changed the ending, the spice up the ending,
right.
And then they created, because it was successful, because the budget was so low for that movie.
Yeah,
they made a huge profit off of it that they decided to make The Gallows Act 2. Which I don't know of anyone who actually saw it other than me, but
I never saw it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. Well, maybe that one, like Zombie Diaries.
Word of mouth on that one was not very good.
No, and it didn't get a theatrical release like the first one.
No, it didn't.
That one
which is a bad sign right there.
Well, from my understanding with Jason Blum, is that he produced a lot of movies, and if he didn't believe that they could make a profit at the theater, he would dump them straight to
just go right to video.
Video.
Yeah.
So, be that as it may, I don't think either one of the Zombie Diaries movies went to theatrical release. I think they made a
no, it did not. I mean, well, at least in the United States. Now, I believe Zombie Diaries ran some film festivals in Britain. That's where they developed a lot of their word of mouth fame. But USA, when they came over to the USA, it was like straight to DVD.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised by that at all. But it looks like it doesn't really say from I'm looking at, but the movie seems like it was because it was such a low budget movie. It was made.
If it got a theatrical release in Britain, it was very limited.
Yeah, well,
but I believe, because really all I could honestly find backup facts on is that it did appear in several film festivals over there, and do very well. I was reading some of the comments from some of the critics that saw them.
That's probably why the Weinsteins picked it up.
That's why. That's how it came to their attention.
And then put it on their extreme label, which is,
yes.
If anyone remembers this, their extreme label was when they released all these gory movies, these hardcore horror films. And the thing is that it kind of catered towards the people who wanted that hard R horror movies. And so Weinstein's made a crap ton of money. In Dimension made a
ton of them. Yeah, Dimension. Oh my God, I used to rent so many of those.
So, but as we're winding down on Zombie Diaries, is there anything you would like to say about Zombie Diaries that we may or may not have missed?
No, I think we hit it all. I'm trying to think. I can't even think of anything clever.
Well, this is one of those.
No, this is one that I may not watch a whole lot again, but it was definitely better the second time around because I was more awake. I was more awake, so I wanted to give them at least an honest look.
I'll definitely remember this movie now that
I remember it. Yeah, I'll remember it, and I like the format of an anthology movie. I've always always loved anthology movies, but this is one of the better. I will remember this is one of the better found footage style films. Yeah, they did a nice job on it.
Okay, so with that, everyone listening to the podcast, what we like to do is me and my guests like to rate the film based on our scale, which is 1 to 5 stars. 1 being very poor, 5 being amazingly excellent. Where on the spectrum, Jim, do you place Zombie Diaries from 2000?
I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
You're gonna give it 3.5? Okay.
Yeah, 3.5.
I'm gonna give it a 3. That's
Mm-hmm.
I'm being generous on this one because I actually think it's better than it should be.
That's
Because
why I gave it the extra half because
um,
I'm of the same mind that you are on this one.
yeah,
I think it is better than people think it is.
I think that George Romero did a much better version of this when he
Oh,
did Diary
absolutely.
of the Dead.
Yes.
But I do like the fact that this is an anthology film and the
Mm-hmm.
sequences are all out of whack. I do like that.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that was clever.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna
They put some real thought into this one. I mean, the directors were also the writers, and it was like, yeah, I like what you guys were thinking, what you visualized for this film. It's you know something different. It wasn't just the same old thing.
what's the
This is
same old.
not your this is not your grandpa's zombie movie. This is something different.
Oh, okay. So with that, everyone, I would like to thank Jim Adams for joining me on this conversation of horror in which we discussed 2006's Zombie Diaries. For everyone here, for everyone there from here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we hope that you've enjoyed this program. I want you to make sure to check out all the other amazing episodes that we have released in the past, as well as what we have upcoming on our website. You can always listen to each new podcast episode every Wednesday at 8 or Monday when we have special theme months every Monday at 8 a.m. Now, that also means that you need to like, follow, subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget, check out our sister podcast, Conversations in Four Color, which delves deep into manga, graphic novels, and comic books. That is our Patreon subscriber exclusive podcast. So you have to be a subscriber or follower to listen to that podcast. But by all means, become one so you never miss an episode of that show either. For
Right.
everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment, I hope you have a pleasant day, and we will see you on the next episode. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.